'cause you're my anomaly, and I'd choose you in 100 lifetimes. I'd choose you in 100 worlds. I'd find you, and I'd say I do for the rest of my life with all that I have.
Hi St John's Parish and Father Martin, thank you for this invitation to speak for a thought for the day. I want to look at the idea of hearing God's voice, and I don't know what you're like when you hear that even phrase. The first thing I think of is crazy people who say they hear voices. Or you think of movies or news stories of people who have committed incredible atrocities because they heard or they thought God told them to do it. Or the things that people do in the name of God that it's nothing to do with God, and they get the whole voice of God mixed up. So there's lots of reasons to be nervous about it, and rightly so. But if I also say, do you pray? Most people say, yeah, I do. Or if I ask you to pray for me, people say, certainly I will. And the idea of praying or communicating or talking to God, we're a lot more comfortable with. But the idea that we could listen and hear from Him in a personal way at a heart level, maybe we get a lot more nervous about that. So I want to look at a few stories in the Bible that maybe help us discern better the voices we're hearing, so that we can tune in and hear God's voice better. The first one is from the book of Samuel, and it's when Samuel's been mentored by Eli, and both of them are sleeping one night, and Samuel hears his voice been called, and he thinks it's Eli, so he goes into the other room and says, Eli, did you call me? And Eli said, didn't. Samuel, go back to sleep. So he goes back, and then he hears the voice again, Samuel, and he gets up and he goes, Eli, did you call me? And he said, no, I didn't. And Eli, being a wise sort of spiritual man, said, I think this could well be God speaking to you, Samuel. So when you go back the next time when you hear that voice, say, speak, your servant's listening. So Samuel went back and he heard his name called twice, Samuel, Samuel. And he says, speak, Lord, your servant's listening. And I like that whole book of Samuel, because part of the conversation in it was to do with the idea that God's voice was rare in those days, that people couldn't hear it, or they couldn't recognize it from all the different voices and things that are competing for our attention. And so I love that book because it deals with that. I suppose another story when I think of God's voice and Him speaking, it maybe is when Jesus is actually getting baptized in the New Testament, and the voice from heaven says, this is my Son in whom I'm well pleased. And the crowd who heard it disagreed about what they heard. Some said it was thunder, some said it was angels, some said it was God. And so sometimes we as people of God can sometimes struggle with what we're hearing. We're not sure, is it our imagination? What is it we're hearing? And I suppose Jesus talked about what His word, when He talked about it in the parable sense, that the sower, and He threw out the seeds or His word or His life, and it lands on the rocks or it lands in the thorny ground, and the cares of this world choke it up. So even though if God's trying to speak to us, we get distracted by all the things we're worried about, and in this present day there's a lot to be worried about. So the Bible goes after this a lot, about hearing God's voice and the things that stop it germinating the life of it in us. Part of the three things I suppose it goes after is the world, the flesh, and the devil. As I said, the world is the cares of the world, or the peer pressure, or the cultural trends that you maybe don't line up with God's law, and you're trying to find out, well, who do I listen to? What voice do I listen to? How to be compassionate and not judgmental, and all these other things that go with it. So the world's a tricky thing to navigate. The flesh is everything to do with our appetites, our desires, and our passions, and they can run away with us and get the better of us. You know, like me, nice craving for food or chocolate, and I sometimes listen to that voice more than I should. I give in to that, and I get led by that, and it draws me away from maybe a more healthy lifestyle. So the flesh also, I suppose, it covers the area of our feelings and our emotions. And some of the reasons why some of us can't hear God's love is because we've been damaged by some of the relationships that are meant to be the most intimate and most loving for us, and these things can corrupt us, so that we end up not trusting anyone, not even God or close friends, because sometimes our feelings and emotions rob us of that trust because the hurts are there. So you have to bring all that, I suppose, in prayer to God, recognizing that all these dynamics are at play, and you've got to sort of say, okay, what voice am I listening to today? And I suppose the last one is the devil. And we used to, as children, you always see it in them old cartoons, Tom and Jerry and so on. You had the wee angel and the wee demon, and one saying do it and the other saying don't. and sometimes the wee demon wins out, even in us. And I like the wee verse that says, resist the devil and he will flee. And so the idea that you can say to that voice, well, what is that voice like? Satan's voice is kind of condemning. It would want to crush your self-worth, your dignity. And you can, if that's what you're feeling inside, you can recognize that's not from God, where God is loving, affirming, and he wants to build you up and edify you. Yes, sometimes he'll correct you to try and steer you right, but he'll do that in the most loving way. So for me, these are some of the tools I use when I'm praying, and I say, okay, what am I feeling? What are the pressures and the dynamics around me? Lord, where are you in the midst of that? And I try and still my heart and my mind to hear him, so that when I hear him speaking to me, I can be maybe more like Samuel and say, speak, Lord, your servant's listening. Lord, bless you in your own prayer time, and as you look for him to guide you through all our different struggles in this world. Bless you, St. John's.